What up, people? This is the ninth part on an ongoing series showcasing some hidden gems on the Nintendo Switch. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 8, links to the playlist will be in the description below or in the comments section. If there's a game you think I'm missing, I might have already talked about it in one of the other videos, so check them out after you check out this one. But real quick, if you're new to the channel, I make videos on single player games with a heavy focus on RPGs. But for this hidden gem series, I try to include many different genres of games. If you do enjoy this video, hit that like button to help the YouTube algorithm spread this video around. And with that, here are 10 must-buy hidden gems for the Nintendo Switch, Part 9. Starting off the list, we have 3/4 Home, the Extended Edition. The game is a visual short story in which you assume the role of Kelly during her drive through the storm. In her mid-20s, Kelly was forced to move back to Nebraska. In the 20 miles between her grandparents' crumbling barn and her parents' home, she receives a phone call from her mother. While driving through a stylized representation of rural Nebraska, you must navigate an extended conversation between Kelly and her parents and younger brother. As someone who loves and looks for narrative-focused games all the time, I really enjoyed my time with this one. Even though the game is extremely short, that doesn't take away the impact it left with me when I played it many years ago on my PS4. The story progresses mostly through dialogue choices that pop up during your conversation, and the extended edition of this game has an epilogue added to it. Seeing how this game can be finished in under an hour, I strongly recommend waiting for this to go on sale on the eShop because while great, $9 is a little too steep in my opinion. Naturally, I can't go too much into the story because that would ruin your whole experience, but if you're like me and many others who are dealing or have dealt with family drama, then 3/4 Home is a well-told visual novel that would unfortunately be relatable on so many levels. Next on the list is Bang Balls Chronicles. This game is a 3D platformer developed by Exit Plan Games and published by Untold Tales. The makers of this game have said it was inspired from popular platformer franchises like Mario, Sonic, and Crash Bandicoot, which you can definitely see while you're playing. Similar to Mario Odyssey, Bang Balls have open worlds to explore, and as you're doing that, you'll be completing challenges, defeating bosses, and discovering secrets. You can play this by yourself, or you can play with up to 4 people with local or online co-op. Now, if I'm being honest, I really didn't enjoy this game as much as I wanted to. A big part of the game is exploring, which is my favorite thing to do in games, but I just wasn't really having as much fun looking around. Now, to be fair, the last platformer I played and adored was Astrobot, so I may be subconsciously comparing it to that game, which I realize is super unfair. Also, I only played it for a couple of hours, so you can take what I say with a grain of salt. Now, if you're wondering why I'm recommending a game I didn't personally like, I sometimes like to add and talk about games that I think other people like, even if they don't necessarily resonate with me. And also, based off other reviews and just online opinions in general, I'm in the minority. Many of the other reviews and just other people who have played the game have loved it, which went to my decision to talk about this game despite my personal feelings. The only thing to keep in mind is that I've heard the game doesn't run the best on the Switch. I played it on my PS5, so I can't confirm that, so maybe check around to see if that's been patched up or not. But personal feelings aside, if you're in the market for a 3D platformer that promotes and pushes exploration, creativity, and just overall having fun, think about giving Bang Balls Chronicles a shot. At number 8, we have Florence. This interactive story was developed by the Australian studio Mountains and published by Annapurna Interactive. In the game, you'll be following the story of 25-year-old Florence as she lives her daily routine and meet Krish, a stylist she sees in the park. The game features little written dialogue and tells Florence's story through a series of brief chapters. Puzzles are used to reinforce pieces of Florence's life as players progress through her story. Similar to 3 Months Home, this is a very, and I mean very short game, clocking in at about an hour tops. But honestly, I'm not too mad at that. As many 80+ hour RPGs that I play throughout the year, I'm always looking for shorter gaming experiences that don't try to overstay their welcome. While I'll probably recommend buying this when it's on sale for like $2, Florence is a quick and creative little story about love and loss that is 100% worth your time. Next on the list, we have A Little to the Left. This puzzle game was released on the Switch in 2022 and were published by Secret Mode. In each level, the player must drag and drop objects to clean up an unorganized space. Some puzzles have more than one answer, and completed puzzles are represented with stars, and for puzzles with more than one answer, the stars are partially filled. I've been playing through this one recently, and I was surprised at how much I was enjoying going through all these puzzles. Recently, I've been constantly looking for games that can just mellow me out, and this game does just that. Just organizing the stuff in each level is pretty relaxing, and it's a great way to end a hectic or stressful day. Also, the puzzles in the beginning start off pretty easy, like sorting items by size, color, numbers, etc. But later on, some of them can get pretty difficult to figure out what the level wants you to do. Luckily, you can ask for a hint if you're really stuck, and I'm not sure if that affects your star rating or not, but it's a good feature so people don't quit the game out of frustration. I love these type of games as sort of like a palate cleanser to play when I'm a little burnt out with RPGs or action focused games. So if you're on the lookout for a new puzzle game with a nice cozy aesthetic, A Little to the Left could be just right for you. See what I did there? Just outside the top 5, we have Slay the Princess, The Pristine Cut. This 2022 horror adventure game was developed and published by Black Tabby Games. The way this game's work is you'll advance through hand-drawn scenes from a first-person perspective. As the story is progressing, you'll be choosing dialogue or action options, and how the story unfolds depends on your choice and dialogue responses. I've heard about this game from a YouTuber called Super Eyepatch Wolf, and he did a great job of showing the game's appeal while being somewhat vague, so I'm trying to do the same thing. The game's initial point is obviously to slay the princess, but it goes much deeper than that. Slay the princess is kind of played through in runs, and each run, depending on my choices, got more and more strange. And because I pretty much went into this blind outside of what Super Eyepatch Wolf said, I didn't fully know what to expect, but there was enough intrigue there to make me keep playing even when I started to run to where all this was going. Unlike all the other games I've spoken about on this channel, this is one of the few I would say it's best to go in with as little information as possible, just like I did. I would never guarantee that you would enjoy a game, but if you enjoy visual novels with a lot of twists, multiple endings, and some well-written dialogue, take a blind chance on Slay the Princess. Starting off the top 5, we have Bzz. This game was inspired by classic platformers from the past and was finally released on the Switch in September of last year. While going through the levels as fast as you can, you're also supposed to be collecting all the bolts scattered across the levels. At the end of each level, you'll get a stage complete screen showing your personal score, how many bolts you collected, and the total time it took you to finish that level. Also, there's a certain time you have to finish the level in order to get the trophy for the overall level. Some of the times are a little easy to get, but others have me scratching my head like, how in the world did someone get through this quickly? As far as the platforming itself goes, it just feels good to jump around and traverse through these small, well-crafted levels. It definitely gives me Celeste and Katana Zero vibes, especially with how easily you can die in it, but just like the other two games, every time I died, I knew it was my fault and was looking forward to trying again, even during the first boss fight I had. And luckily, you can turn the difficulty down if you want the game to be a little easier and less stressful, but on the flip side, there's also a permadeath mode, so you can make the game as easy or as hard as you want. There's not much else of importance I could say about this one. It's just a nice solid platformer. While I normally prefer 3D platformers like Mario Odyssey and Kirby and the Forgotten Land, it's something nice and comfy about a little pixel graphic 2D platformer, especially playing it on a handheld like the Steam Deck or the Nintendo Switch. The game can be beat in about 5 or so hours, so maybe wait for a sale if you think that's not too much time. But either way, Bzz is the perfect game for platformer fans. Next up, we have one of my favorites on this list, and that's Coffee Talk. If you're not a fan of visual novels, I'm sorry there's so many on this list, but I swear this is the last one. Anyway, you'll be playing as a barista who's the owner and sole employee of Coffee Talk, a coffee shop in Seattle, Washington. The game's plot is experienced over the course of 2 weeks, with each day acting as a vignette in which various characters visit the coffee shop and discuss their concerns with the barista and with each other. What I love the most about Coffee Talk is constantly getting day-to-day updates on the lives of the people who enter the cafe. Without spoiling, there's an ongoing story involving an engaged couple involving 2 different species and how that is unfortunately affecting their engagement. Seeing how that storyline played out during the course of this game was my personal favorite, and I would get really excited when one of them showed up to get a drink. And that's just one of the storylines. There are a few others, some silly, some serious, and a few weird ones, in a good way. While there isn't much gameplay in this game outside of making drinks, seeing how these characters' lives progress through this 5 or so hour visual novel and seeing which endings you get is definitely the selling point of the game. If that sounds at all interesting to you, then Coffee Talk is well worth your consideration. Starting off the top 3 is Duck Detective: The Secret Salami. You'll be playing as a down on his luck duck detective in a city where all the residents are animals. His latest case starts simple: figuring out what happened to a missing salami. The bulk of the gameplay involves you solving puzzles in the form of filling in the correct words in the detective's notebook that helps further solve the case. You can easily just guess the words, but it's much easier and more fun to investigate the crime scene and also interact with the characters in the office. You know, for a silly little indie game, Duck Detective does a really good job of establishing different tones. While the game is overall pretty silly and lighthearted, there are a few times where the investigation takes a slightly serious turn, and it never feels out of place or unbelievable. Also, pretty much all the characters were fun and brought an enjoyable vibe to the game, especially the character you play as, Eugene McQuacklin, and yes, that is actually his name. As far as my experience with the gameplay, when you sit there and think, it was pretty easy to fill in the blanks to figure out where to start looking for clues next. There were times where I was a little stuck, but that was usually due to me not getting all the clues in a room, or not talking or sometimes re-talking to a specific character. However, around the end of the game, I was ashamed to admit I got a little stumped on the last couple of clues and needed to look it up. But to be fair, you kind of had to take a little leap of logic to figure it out. At least that's how I feel. Since the game is pretty short, it won't be that much of a time commitment, so I highly recommend you give this charming little point and click detective story a shot. Just missing out on the top spot, we have Curse to Golf. To briefly go over the story, you are a professional golfer who's killed by lightning right before the end of a tournament and are sent to Golf Purgatory, where you are greeted by a giant ghost named the Scotsman. The Scotsman informs you that you must complete an 18-hole course in order to be resurrected, but will die if they use too many strokes on any hole needed to return to the very beginning. While golfing, you'll have access to a driver, an iron, and a wedge, all giving you various advantages or disadvantages depending on where you're hitting from. Each course during your run is riddled with hazards such as brick walls, giant fans, pools of water, and the classic mini graveyard. To combat these hazards, you'll obtain ace cards, which will give you abilities such as multiple balls being hit, making the ball do a U-turn, or just simply getting an extra turn without affecting your par. On top of that, there's also what are known as pins, which will give you a buff that lasts your whole run as opposed to a one-time use like the ace cards. I've been a fan of these type of golf games ever since I played golf in the Rugrats Search for Reptar game as a kid. I'm always on the lookout for these type of games, but they're typically on mobile, and that's just not where I prefer to play. But playing this on my PS5, and to be more specific, my PlayStation Portal, has been a real treat. I normally don't play roguelikes, but because the roguelike mechanics are so well intertwined with the golf, it doesn't really bother me. So if you like mini golf games as much as I do, Curse to Golf is a perfect pick up and play title for the Nintendo Switch. And at number 1, we have the sequel to one of my favorite indie games ever, SteamWorld Heist 2. In the game, you'll be recruiting a ragtag crew of steam bots as you venture into the ocean to uncover its source of poisoning. During each turn, your characters have 2 action points, allowing them to shoot, move, or perform other abilities. Offensively, players control the aiming of all firearms and can bounce bullets and grenades off the environment for ricocheting trick shots, and for defense, you're able to hide behind covers such as barrels and shields to take hits for you. Compared to the first game, SteamWorld Heist 2 really upped the RPG elements by introducing job classes that give your crewmates different abilities. For instance, the sniper class has a higher damage output than other classes, but the trade-off is that in order to shoot again next turn, you have to spend one of your 2 action points this turn to reload unless there are no enemies around. If you would rather use that action point to move around, you can, but you'll have to reload on your next turn before you can shoot again. There are other jobs like the Brawler, which specializes in melee, and the Reaper, which allows you to have a free turn if you killed a robot with your previous shot. There's a total of 6 jobs, each of them having their own skill trees that you can slowly unlock abilities over time as you level up. I've added so many SteamWorld titles to these videos because I feel as a franchise, most of their games are hidden gems. So if you're a fan of turn-based and strategy games as much as I am, SteamWorld Heist 2 is 100% a must-buy. But I'm really interested to hear from you. What hidden gems do you recommend for the Nintendo Switch? Let me know in the comments. If you want to see more Nintendo content from me, click one of the links on the screen. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.